Back to North Korea now. Let's turn to Michael Crowley, a senior foreign affairs correspondent for Politico. A lot of talk on North Korea and now this conversation. What do we to make of this?
Well, it's interesting. There are different ways to interpret it. The president interprets it as a sign that his policy of, getting very tough on North Korea, being threatening, blustering, some people say, is creating a willingness in the North to start negotiations, even if not with the U.S., with his neighbor to the south. Another school of thought is that Trump has actually alarmed the South Koreans, who, after all, would be seeing a war on their doorstep if the United States were to come to blows with North Korea. They're desperate to avoid that. And one school of thought is that the North is taking advantage of what they see as a potential rift between South Korea and the U.S. Because the South Koreans think that Trump is getting potentially a little bit of an itchy trigger finger, and they're looking for some way to calm the tension. So we're going to have to wait and see how this plays out to see which side is right. But it's certainly a very interesting development, and I think most people would agree that it is a good development, that there is at least some dialogue with the North, because nobody wants war with the North, and everybody agrees this has to end with some kind of negotiated solution. Otherwise, it's a catastrophe.
Then there's the big button tweet. Let's put that up there from a couple of days ago. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this. The president said the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un just stated that the nuclear button is on his desk at all times. Will somebody from his depleted and food-starved regime please inform him that I too have a nuclear button, but that it's much bigger and more powerful than his, and my button works? What is the consensus on what it is that was to accomplish?
Well, I got to tell you, Shep, that among sort of foreign policy professionals in Washington, the consensus is that was not a great move. There are definitely dissenters, Trump allies and supporters who disagree. I'll give you the first piece of it is that people say that was hot-headed, it's reckless. You have to communicate extremely carefully, particularly when it comes to nuclear weapons. You can't get into this kind of blustery, loose talk. You increase the possibility of some miscalculation. You have to message your threats involving nuclear weapons so carefully. What the Trump White House and Trump allies would say is, look, we have basically been too gentle with the North Koreans for years as they're advancing toward this capability of being able to potentially strike us with nuclear-tipped ICBMs. It's time to show them we really mean business. It's time to make clear to them that we will attack them before they have the capability to attack us. And the president is really just following through on a policy that he has already made clear, which is that he's taking a very hard line, and that these tweets don't actually represent a change in U.S. policy. It's all rhetorical, and that people are overreacting to the tweets. But really, Shep, I think a lot of people were quite unnerved and worried and alarmed by those tweets. There are a lot of people who think that we're on the brink of war. I don't think we are quite at that point, but the president should be sensitive to how those tweets are being read, both at home and abroad.
Quickly, before we go on the breaking news out of Pakistan, the State Department says suspending all security aid to Pakistan, obviously a vital partner in security regarding terrorism. Decaying relationship, as it's being reported?
Well, Shep, this has been kind of an unhappy marriage the U.S. has had with Pakistan since basically September 11th, and actually going back much farther. But for, decades now, we've been trying to figure out this relationship where we kind of can't live with Pakistan, but we can't live without it. We want to have a relationship with Pakistan which has nuclear weapons, which can be an ally in fighting Islamic militants in Afghanistan and elsewhere in the region. At the same time, there's a feeling that Pakistan is constantly double-dealing, even double-crossing us, not playing straight, sometimes more the problem than the solution. So do you try to draw them closer with more ties, with more money, and get them more on our side? Or do we finally put our foot down and say enough is enough, at the risk of having them drift away, drift into the arms of China, getting closer to militant groups? It's been a balance for many years. Donald Trump is trying to push the balance a little bit in that other direction, and it's a little bit of a gamble, but we'll see whether it works.
Michael Crowley from Politico. Thanks, Michael.